sure. Cool. All right. How do you find success with niching and learn how to become a true expert by going deep in just one destination? I'm Brianna, the owner of Milk and Honey Travels, and this is a podcast for us, by us, where we have deep conversations with honest answers, and nothing is off limits. Thank you for being here, and let's dive in. So, today I am so excited to chat with Lori Gold, who runs the Resorts of the Riviera Maya Facebook page and the Mexperts membership. So, Lori was a travel advisor for 16 years and devoted her career to curating highly personalized trips for her clients. She was known as the go-to person for knowing how to sift through the ridiculous amounts of options in the Riviera Maya specifically and know how to match the right resort with the right client. She is now an official expat that has lived in the beautiful Riviera Maya for 8 years. Lucky you. And if you follow Lori, which I do, you know how much she loves Mexico and specifically the Riviera Maya and what a passion she has for sharing it with her colleagues. And so her goal is to provide advisors with insider information, exclusive content, and premium resources to learn everything there is to know about the Riviera Maya so that they can sell it with ease. Now, that was her bio. She's fantastic. But I remember, Lori, when I met you for the first time, it was actually in the Riviera Maya, I think at ILTM. And this was at the beginning of my career, right? So I didn't know anybody, but thankfully I knew Heather Christopher, and Heather knows everybody. So Heather introduced me to you. And so I knew two people at the conference, and I was like, okay, thank you. I'm not like the lone duck sitting in the corner by myself. But what I remember, because I was new in my career at that point, so I could go to a conference and be like not really busy. I remember you, like, I don't think you stopped working the whole time we were at the conference. Like, you just were nonstop, either on your computer, booking resorts for your clients, or on the phone, like handling escalation issue, all the things. So I just, like, you were the busiest, like, person there. That's what I remember. So kind of just tell me about, like, yes, you were a successful travel advisor. I saw it with my own eyes. What has your career been like in the industry? Because you said 16 years in the industry and you look 26, and I'm not sure how these two things like add up.
Okay, first of all, I don't know if that's sad or funny or what that is what you remember about me. It's true.
Yeah.
I actually stopped going to conferences because that was always the case. Like I couldn't get away from my computer for long enough to sit down and go to the meetings and go to all the talks and really take in all the information. I don't know that I was the busiest person there. I'm sure there's people that were busier and are people that are busier. Maybe I'm just not good at managing my my workload. But I was the type of agent that worked, whenever people needed me, and I didn't really have boundaries. And I think these days people are a lot better. Agents are a lot better with boundaries. They should be.
Yeah.
However, I believe it also led to part of my success is working whenever people needed me, and got that
They can always
client
count on
base.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I definitely could say with like out of a shadow of a doubt, that's what you definitely provided to your clients. Cause I was like, that girl answers her phone every time it rings. Whereas me, I'm like, oh my God, my phone's ringing. What do they want?
Yeah, no,
Uh,
now I don't. No.
now you know,
That
now
was
you're
maybe
like,
short-lived.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
get
no,
it.
no. But
So
I
that's
started
really interesting. Go ahead.
I started, like you said, about 16 years ago, and I started the way that I think every travel agent should start. And unfortunately, our
Mm.
industry doesn't have many barriers to entry, which
Hmm.
is horrible for all of us. But anyway, I started out in an office being an assistant to different travel agents. There is no better way
Mm.
to learn than
Yeah.
being in an office and hearing people's conversations and hearing their issues and how they get through them and how they talk to clients and all that stuff. Um, there's no substitution for that. I wish that everyone could do that. I know it's not possible now because there's so many people that work from home and that aren't like in an office space like there used to be. But
Right.
that's how I started. And I was an assistant for a while, maybe 3 years, something like that. And then
Nice.
my agency received an invitation to the Charisma GIBC Awards. At that point, I don't believe I was booking much of anything, but they asked if I wanted to go, and I said sure. And I grew up, sorry to jump around, but I grew up not traveling anywhere besides Miami. We had a condo in Miami on the beach, and that was our vacation. That's where we went.
All the
The
time.
odd
Yeah.
trip. Yeah, like maybe we went somewhere else like once in a while, but never to the Caribbean, never to an all inclusive, or anything like that. So it was my first trip to Mexico and my first time at an all inclusive. And that trip changed my life and my career.
Mm, that was your love
So,
affair. That was where it
yes,
all started. That was where it all
in
began.
many ways,
Okay.
yes.
That's so funny because I was going to ask kind of like, where did this love of Mexico come from? And like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because it's like, did you already kind of like just have it as this, I know what I want to specialize in, I know what I love, and I'm building my business from there? Or was there like this impetus of like, wow, this is it for me? So that's kind of like your origin story. That's super cool. So
So I have
that is,
just to add on to that,
yeah.
I actually wanted to sell cruises. That was what I thought I was going to do in the
Oh,
industry, and I can tell
yeah,
you,
yeah.
I probably sold like 10 cruises my entire career as a travel
Yeah.
advisor. I thought I would, but that's just not what people wanted to book, and I was not advertising at all. So it was kind of like I was whatever people came to me wanting to book, that's what I booked. It wasn't
Yeah.
like I was trying to get cruising clients specifically. I just thought to myself, that's really what I want to specialize in, and it didn't
Yeah.
happen. But that trip to Mexico really changed everything. And we did site inspections at all of the Charisma hotels on that trip. And I came home and started selling them. And in the end, within a few years, I was one of the top sellers for that brand. I went from having never been to being one of the top sellers. So it really was being there, experiencing it, feeling it, seeing it, and then being able to go home and talk about it with clients knowledgeably and confidently.
Yeah.
That really made the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, it super does. And so, was it at the beginning of your career kind of like selling all the things that people came to you for? And then, was there a certain point at the career where you were just like, I just find myself more and more and more, either because people are saying and telling other people, or from your perspective, being like, no, this is what I'm great at, this is what I know. Like, how did it start to kind of just really take on this Mexico like focus in your career? Was there like a point?
So until almost the end, I was selling everything to everyone, which looking back, I kind of cringe because I don't love that.
Mm,
I feel like a lot of people do that and it's totally fine. But at some point, it might not be fair to the client if you're
yeah.
trying to sell something that you don't know as well. I mean, I know we have, DMCs and suppliers and tour operators that can help with that. But I do think there's huge value in specializing for everyone involved, for yourself and for the client. And
Yeah.
I don't think there was any sort of point where I was selling more Mexico or more Caribbean. I think that once I went for the first time, that changed everything. And I kept going back because, there was
Mm,
fam trips where I would get invited to more of their award ceremonies because I kept selling, selling, selling. And so I would come back each time more confident, more confident. My clients could hear that. They could hear my
yeah.
passion when talking to me, and they could
Yeah.
hear my excitement and the knowledge. And so they would refer me to their friends for that type of travel because of that. So it wasn't like I was advertising it more. Like I said, I've never advertised. I wasn't advertising anything. And I didn't decide either to only sell Mexico and the Caribbean actually until the last like year and a half of my career. So the first like 14, whatever years, I was selling everything. But I would definitely say specializing in Mexico and the Caribbean because that's what people knew me for. They came to me for that because they could hear the passion. They were referred from their friends who were booking with me because they had such a great experience because of that.
Yeah. And I think that's very important for just travel advisors who are wherever you're at in your career. Like, yes, you might say, like, hey, I can book that for you. But what's going to get you further is when you're passionate about it and you also have the knowledge to back it up, because you can't manufacture that, right? Like, you can't
Yeah,
manufacture like your excitement or like, I know for me, I think it's probably Africa that if you start me talking, you won't stop me. Oh, if you start me talking about it, you won't be able to stop me.
yeah,
And I will go back anytime somebody even like starts to mention that there's an opportunity. Like there will never be enough times to go back and have those experiences. And I know that like if I'm on a consult call and this is the destination we're talking about, like you're sold because I'm
it's sold.
like
Yeah.
yeah, it's a done deal. And I love that. I love that you had that, but also that it took your career and kind of skyrocketed it, because that's it. Like, there's nothing to argue about, which I
Yeah.
think is a lot different. So for someone like myself, I might get clients who I just work with on a continuous basis, want to go to Mexico because that's where they're going for spring break, whatever. And I can do it, right? Like, I am a far cry from an expert. I've been a couple of times, but I am probably like that person talking to them. It's just kind of like, I'll give you the basics. I'll ask my friends and colleagues what I should recommend, but they're not going to get that passion from me in the way that they would get from you. So, how do you, or did you explain that to clients, the difference, I guess, between what other advisors could do and the value maybe that like you could bring to them? Were you able to kind of like tangibly explain that or did you even need to?
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think I needed to. I think that, like you said, if you have clients that are, have been your clients for a while, and you're going to do all their travel, even if it's to a place that you're not, extremely passionate about or knowledgeable, because of course we can't be that for every place in the world.
Yeah.
Then they're your clients no matter what, and it doesn't matter really. But when you're getting new clients and you're building your client base, um,
Yeah.
you're going to get referred based on being a specialist and being passionate and everything like that. So that's kind of important. You're the people that you're booking Africa for, they know you're passionate, and they will hopefully refer other people who are interested in that destination to you. And that's sort of what happened for me. I had clients until almost the end going everywhere, but majority of my client base was doing the all-inclusive thing, and that's pretty much all they were doing, once or
Mm.
twice a year with their families, because that's just what the referrals were coming in as, because of my passion.
And your ability to kind of just continue to increase your knowledge was coming through fam trips. Were you like doing your, like, when did you kind of start to be like, okay, now I'm, because you moved there 8 years ago, but like, how did that kind of like come to be where you're just like, okay, first maybe I'm escaping Canadian winters, and now I think maybe I'm going to look for some real estate here and park myself for a bit?
Well,
Did you start to
I
kind
think
of, was
that
that like an intentional thing, or you just kind of like one vacation just kept going and didn't stop?
no, when I first came, my first trip, like I said, that changed my whole life in many ways. I did think, wow, I want to live here, but at that point, it was just not happening. I was really young and not ready to move to another country, uh, and so whenever I would come to Mexico, I would be really sad to leave, which I think everybody is. I think no matter who you
Mm-hmm.
are, if you had a good
Yeah.
vacation, you're probably really sad to leave. I think I was more sad than the average person, and it really always felt like home to me. Like, it felt so peaceful and
Mhm.
just like a really good feeling. I can't really explain it, but just like a peace, I was at peace here. And when I was, living in Toronto for my whole life, and I was married. And when that ended, and I thought, I don't have to be here anymore, I'm
Mm.
out of here essentially. So I did move
Yeah.
to Miami for about 4 months, just as like a test period to see how I would be outside of Canada. I'd never lived really
Yeah.
far from
Yeah.
home. I went to university a few hours drive, but nothing like crazy. And I was comfortable in Miami. So I lived there for a few months, and then I just decided to move to Mexico, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know Spanish, and I literally just did it at a time when it was happening, but not like it is now. I mean, now there are, a million digital nomads, and especially since after
Yeah.
COVID, but these days so many expats live here, and they did then too, but it was very different. There wasn't as many resources as there are now. There wasn't as many Facebook groups. Like, now it's a piece of cake, but when I did it, it was definitely a learning curve.
You were a pioneer. Yeah. No, you were a pioneer for sure. So what was it like? So you get there, and obviously you already knew you loved Mexico as a place to visit and to vacation. And then did it have that same allure, or, like when you were like, oh, I'm living here, like I'm not actually getting on a plane to go back home. Were you, was it all that you expected it to be? Obviously, I feel like yes, because you're still there. But like, was there anything that was really hard about it? Or, I mean, obviously, maybe speaking the language, when you just have to do like normal everyday life stuff, probably was a little bit difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the beginning, to be honest. I did meet a friend about 2 weeks after I moved, and we sort of were together, hanging out together all the time. And he knew a little bit more Spanish, so it was kind of like a crutch that I had throughout my time here. Um, Definitely, there are things that are more difficult, and of course, living in Mexico is not the same as just going to a resort. And I always encourage people now, if you think you want to move to Mexico, don't just pack everything up and move like I did. I mean, it worked out for me, but rent a place for a few months here, a few months there, check out different areas, see what you want. That's not what I did. I kind of just went hard right away, and
Right in the
brought
deep end.
most of my stuff, and rented long term, and all the things. And it worked out fine, but it's still, I mean, there is still that feeling. But really, like the resort that I first went to, which was El Dorado Royale and Casitas, like that was the first resort I went to, and that was the one that gave me that feeling. That feeling
Mm,
still exists. And even now, 8 years later, when I go out and I'm driving down the highway, I'm like, I can't believe I live here, where all these people come to
yeah.
vacation and spend all this money, and I live in this place. Like, how cool is that? Like, I really don't take it for granted.
No, as you should, because yeah, that's a gift and a blessing. So, when was kind of like not the shift, but maybe, because I'm not sure how intentional you were with it, but like when you started to share your knowledge of the Riviera Maya, like you're gathering for years and years and years, all of this knowledge, all of this expertise, you visited all of these resorts, you now live there and can do so on a more consistent basis. Was it kind of like an organic start, meaning like, okay, I'm tired of answering these same questions in my DMs all the time, like let me just put the information out there? Or was this a direction you were like intentionally trying to grow into and there was just like the right opportunity?
So it was not intentional at all. I actually never thought I would do anything but be a travel advisor. It's been my only job in my life, besides being a
Mm.
counselor at camp when I was 18 or whatever, or sooner, earlier than that. So I never envisioned doing anything else. I never thought I had skills to do anything else, and I didn't. I mean, I've been learning as I go, but. In 2020, when the world shut down, it shut down for Canadians for longer than most other people,
Yeah. Yeah, it
Americans
did.
specifically. And
Yeah.
so my business really was off the table for quite some time. And right when the resort started to open back up here, which was only they were only closed for like 2 to 3 months. I was going around and seeing all the changes, the buffets that had the shields, and they had those little mats that you step onto. I don't know what those were for, but anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
there was a
Like
lot of
they put
changes.
like medicine on your feet. I'm not sure what that was for either.
Yeah, no, made no sense, but whatever.
Right.
Whatever they think is working.
Yeah.
So I was going and doing site inspections and learning about all the changes and taking notes and taking pictures, and then I was going and posting in like 5 different Facebook groups for travel agents, of which many people are in the same groups. And I'm like, this is probably really annoying. I'm just going to create my own space and post this stuff, and anyone that wants to come can come.
Yeah.
And at
Yeah.
that time, you know, a lot of people were starting to have to sell Mexico because it was the only thing that was open and the only thing with
Yes.
no restrictions. So
Yes.
agents that were selling Asia and Disney and Europe and anywhere else in the Caribbean really were like, okay, now I have to sell Mexico. I have to sell the Mexican Caribbean or whatever. And I have really no idea because it is, people think it's easy. It's Cancun. Everyone goes there. It's so popular, but there's over 217 hotels, and that's not including
Yes.
Tulum. That's not including Isla Mujeres and Cozumel and Holbox. And those are like the major or the bigger hotels. Like there's so many, there's upwards of probably 400 hotels in this destination. And each one
Right.
is different, and each beach is different, and each area is different. There's a lot to know if you don't know, much. And so that's when
Yes.
I decided I realized there was a need to educate and help educate the travel advisor community on everything. And so I started sharing more information in my Facebook group. And then the next year in 2021, I started doing paid classes for the agents to educate them on the destination.
That's brilliant. And what a good use of taking lemons and making lemonade, because
Mhm.
that was like, gosh, I mean, the struggle. And you're right, because Canada and Canadians specifically, like, couldn't travel for much longer. And then it was kind of like the blessing that you could give knowledge on the place that like the most people could actually get to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I remember, yeah, it's like send me wherever is open, send me there. And that was
Mhm.
kind of like people's requests, so which is really great. And then you kind of took that and was like, okay, well, I have this information, people want this information, let me kind of aggregate it all, put it in this Facebook group so I can share it with like the people who care. And then they just kind of came in droves because as of now, and I think I looked the other day, like your Facebook group itself is over 20,000 members, which is bananas because I don't even know how many travel advisors exist, but the fact that over 20,000 of them have found their way to your page and find value there is so incredible. And the idea that like you've attracted that many people and that you've built this thing that is so successful because it is the most active and engaged Facebook page like that I know of for travel advisors. So how did that grow from like just this idea in 2020 of like let me just put it in a Facebook page to like where it is now? What's that growth been like? And how the heck do you manage it? Because it's a lot.
Great question. So I think what sparked the growth was in the fall of 2020, we had three hurricanes here, and we don't often get hurricanes, and at
Mm.
least two of them were pretty bad. And so again, I can't remember exactly, but at least one, if not two, people had to evacuate from their resorts if they didn't have a hurricane shelter. And there was agents that had clients here and agents that couldn't contact their clients. And so there was a lot of bonding during that time and a lot of helping agents, helping other agents, people who were at the resorts, connecting with their clients and things like that. And that really brought a lot of people in and a really great sense of community at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's grown steadily since then. Honestly, like I think I sort because I don't accept everyone to the group. I'm a little bit strict with who I accept, and I get a lot of requests from people who aren't travel agents or who say they are, but questionable. And I probably get like 100 to 150 requests every week, so it is still
Wow.
grow. And every time someone, I'm
Wow.
like, how are there still more travel agents out there?
Right,
Like, where?
right, right. Like,
So,
where'd you,
so
what
where
group
have
you
you
been living
been?
in
Like,
there? Yeah.
where have you been like since the beginning of this group? Why are you just coming to it now? Of course, there's a lot of new agents as well,
Right.
but managing it is extremely difficult. I manage it completely by myself because I run it really strictly. I have
Mm.
created another reason why it's grown is because I create tons of resources for the agents. I keep them all in the
Mm-hmm.
featured section. So we have like top 10 lists that you can use to start your research if you're brand new or you're not comfortable with a certain topic. We have a Google document with like 17 sheets of information. And every day I post something that provides value or some sort of
Yeah.
information. Every morning I get emails from all the main travel publications and I scour them for anything to do with the Mexican Caribbean and I share it in there. I spend my days and weeks doing site inspections and tours and excursions and share the information. So I'm constantly adding value and adding things to the group to help advisors. And I think that's why people join. It's not just like people talking about their own experiences or asking questions. I'm also every day like guiding the conversation and providing
Yeah.
valuable resources to help them.
Yeah, and that you're right. That is such a huge difference and differentiator because it's nice to just be able to know like where you can go and Facebook groups are it for a lot of us. Like I have a question about this and here's my peers and here's my colleagues. I'll just ask it there and see the feedback I get. And that's one part of the benefit of a Facebook group, but also to have that other element of like curated resources, information, like, and I see you say this all the time, like, and I love it. I love you for it. But like fools, like the information is here. Don't ask a dumb question when you can just search and look for it yourself. Because I'm like, yeah, let's use our brains
Yeah.
because there is so much information there, and that's even for somebody like myself. When I remember when I joined, it was just kind of like I said, I'm not an expert in this area, and I'm not even getting a ton of requests. But even if I want to be like, what have people said about this one resort that I'm about to recommend, and I haven't even been there myself, and I know the client and whatever, and let me just read all the posts that have been in there, and even probably your own like detailed rundown and all the photos and everything. Like there is not a time where I have like put something in the search bar and hadn't gotten back so much information. So like not only the conversations, but everything you specifically do to like pour in in essentially for free, all of that you give for free. And so that's kind of like taking me to my next question, because then obviously you had the paid, I guess, master classes or something like that.
Mhm.
And then when did Mexperts become a thing to where like now this is a membership for the people that want to go deeper? And I guess kind of like what was the gap or the problem you were seeing? And you're like, okay, like y'all need this and I'm going to create this for you. Where did that happen?
So another great question. In 2022, I was running the Facebook group and creating these resources. And I thought to myself, I have so many more resources I want to create, but they all take
Mm,
time. And I don't have, I'm
yes.
still, travel's coming back. I'm booking travel a little bit, plus running this group, plus doing the classes, plus. I can't do everything and I can't do it for free.
Yes.
And I sort of decided at the same time or around the same time, okay, I have to pick a path. I can't book travel and help advisors at the same time because
Yeah.
someone's not getting my full attention and it's not fair. And that's when
Yeah.
I decided to go without helping advisors versus clients. And so I decided to stop booking travel. And that's when I decided to create Mexperts as well, eh, and put in all those resources that I wanted to create that I know will help people learn about, promote, and sell the Mexican Caribbean easier. Because it's like I said, there's a million resorts, there's 1,000 trillion excursions and tours, and transfer companies, and there's just so much of everything, and it's hard to know where to turn. And I just felt like I had the resources to help put something together that can demystify it in a sense.
Yeah. And so that was incredible. And I love, so I just, this is a curious question because, like, kind of what helped you make the decision that you were okay to pivot? You were okay to give up, like, hey, like, I have a great career. I'm really great at it. I'm successful. It's not like it wasn't working out for you or travel wasn't coming back. But now I've found this thing that I'm also passionate about and I'm also really great at. And I have to make a choice, which seems kind of like a hard choice, but I also feel like I can definitely see the benefits of the choice you made. But I kind of want to just know, like, for you, how hard was that decision, and kind of like what was the deciding factor? And I mean, I think you're happy with it, but just kind of like, how did you make such a hard decision?
Yeah, it was so hard, for a long
Yeah.
time. Now I'm over it, but it was really hard because my identity was being a travel agent. Like, I didn't know
Mm,
how to be anything else, how to say I'm anything else. It was really, really challenging to sort of take that step, and I did it slowly. So, I told my
mm.
clients that I'm on a sabbatical or I'm on a leave of absence. So, I never even to this day, I never really said, like, I'm no longer a travel agent. It kinda just
Yeah.
faded away over time,
Yeah.
and I referred them all to my colleague, and so she's taking care of all my clients. And a few of them have asked me recently, are you coming back? And I'm like, oh, I don't think so, I'm doing something else in the industry now. But I never really officially said, like, okay, shop is closed, I'm not doing this
Yeah.
anymore. it
Yeah.
was it was a slow transition, like, I'm just on a leave of absence, I'll see. And I was telling them that, and I was telling myself that, and
Gotcha. Yeah.
and that's kind of how it went for a while until um, maybe early last year or mid last year. I can't remember exactly when, where I was comfortable, like, okay, I'm really not doing that anymore. And I don't really know the main deciding factor, but one big thing, I think I'm more passionate about picking one thing to specialize in. And I know you can do that as a travel advisor. It's harder if you're just specializing in like one area, because what if something happens? And but
Mm-hmm.
um I love that I only have to talk and know about one thing. I mean, one thing, there's a million things here, but one area.
Right. You're
And
going
the
deep.
biggest thing, yeah, the biggest
Mm.
thing though is that there's no emergencies. Any emergency is something I
Love.
make for myself, like,
Yes.
I didn't
That's
do
what I'm
something on
saying. I'm
time.
like, you don't have 2 a.m. phone calls because a flight was canceled.
No,
Like that, you're like,
no.
not my problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So
love
nothing
that. I love
urgent.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
that's
best
a
part.
beautiful thing because that's like, I'm probably so many of us can be like the one thing that drives me crazy. And that, like, I know when my phone rings and it's like that client who I know is supposed to be traveling that day, I'm like, gosh. Ugh. So that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. Also, I would say it probably, because I feel like what you're doing now is very entrepreneurial as well. Like you're kind of building a business and figuring out how to make it profitable and figuring out how to add value and figuring out what that value is worth and what you should charge for it and how you want to grow it and all those things that are not associated with the same types of skills that we've grown our travel business learning. And so that's even a whole skill set in and of itself. Like, yeah, I know how to do this and I'm good at it, but also I need to like make it a business and create a living for myself. And that's a whole other thing, right? Which is
Oh yeah.
something you had to
I
learn.
str I struggle with that every day because and I always say like I don't know what I'm doing and it's like a miracle, in a sense that I've gotten this far because I'm not I mean I am an entrepreneur but I don't have like the skill set I guess that some do have when going into
Yeah.
it because all I knew how
Yeah.
to do, all I've ever done is just book travel. So
Yeah.
it is a really big learning curve. Almost everything I do is difficult because it's something I haven't done before, but keeps it
Mhm.
interesting, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's funny because I'm kind of the opposite. I'm just like, I don't even care what the business is about. Just like let it be business and I'll figure it out. Like that's what excites me. I'm like, I'm such a mediocre traveler, but I'm not. But I like sometimes like tell like I look at other people, I'm like, y'all are so much better at this, but I'm making a good amount of money, so I'm okay.
Right.
um, so for Mexperts, which I think is fabulous, and I from what I know of it and what you give them, I'm like, girl, triple your price. But that's just me again, being all
Yeah,
about the business.
yeah.
But what have you like? What type of person is Mexperts good for and right for, and what? How do they grow once they're part of a membership like that, where they get the access literally to your brain and all of the things that you know, and how does that help them like be better at what they do?
So I think honestly it's for everyone. And I have brand new advisors and I have advisors who have
Mm.
been in the industry for 30 years. And some of them, specialize in Mexico and some of them don't. But I think that like me personally, I'm still learning new things all the time. So no one knows everything. There's always something more
Mhm.
to learn. And we do things in Mexperts that even if you're an expert, you might not know this. You probably don't. You know what
Mm.
I mean? Or you don't
Mhm.
have time to create this resource or like for example we just did a class and this class is for sale separately but it was free from experts on all the non all-inclusive hotels in the destination and we spoke about
Mm.